involved in, and we would like to take this opportunity by starting by wishing you and your family well at this difficult time, and we truly look forward to the day that we can welcome you back to our island home at Bowmore Distillery on the Atlantic island of Islay. Today we're presenting from Islay. We're also presenting from Chicago, and on the line today will be David Turner. He's our distillery manager at Bowmore Distillery. He's got over 30 years service. He's worked in every aspect of the distillation process. He's worked in the malt barns when I first knew him, through the distillation fermentation processes, and also now manages some of the most esteemed warehouses in the world. And joining us as well is Linda Gray, who runs our visitor centre and keeps us all in check. So we look forward to hearing your questions and answers today. Remember, this is an interactive session, so please feel free to ask that question. And I'm going to begin today by handing over to David, who's going to introduce us to really what is the heart of the brand, which is the Bowmore 12 years old.
Evening everybody, and thanks for joining us. Unfortunately, you can't join us here in Islay with the uncertain times we're living in, but it's good that we're virtual and we're online. So we're open, it's a question and answer. So tell us what you're drinking tonight, share what your drams are, any questions you want to ask us, just ask us. But we're glad that everyone's at home safe and well, and we look forward to welcoming you to the distillery when the uncertain times are over. So my name's David Turner, as Ian says. I've been at the distillery for just about 30 years now. So I started off in the malt barns when I was I started off in the warehouse, when I was 16, worked up through the malt barns, mash house, stilling, and now into distillery manager. So we'll start off with a wee dram, just an introduction, and wet our lips, just a wee teaser. We've got here the 12-year-old Bowmore. This is a dram, if anybody hasn't tried it in the last 2 or 3 years, I definitely recommend. It's a good solid Islay whisky, definitely worth a try for anybody who hasn't tried it lately. It's just kind of dark golden colour. It's bottled at 40% ABV, so it's a nice strength. Maybe just needs a touch of water just to open it up. But this one is a marriage of bourbon and sherry. It's roughly half and half. So 12-year-old in bourbon and 12-year-old sherry married together for the bottling. So if you have a wee smell, anyone at home who's got the 12, you get honey, lemon, you get the sweetness from the vanilla, from the bourbon cask, you get the dark flavours from the sherry cask like caramel, toffee, raisins, chocolate. This is a really good mix. You tend to find in Bowmore, you get the true distillery character coming from the bourbon casks. The sherries are a bit darker and richer.
What would you describe that true bourbon character as, Davey?
Bowmore Islay's famous for the peaty whiskies. On the north are traditionally are very lightly peated. On the south, traditionally very heavy peated. Coincidentally, we're in the middle of the island and we're in between them. So we see ourselves or call ourselves a mid-peated or a perfectly balanced Islay whisky. At 17-year-old, I would say 12 to 17, you still get the distinctive Bowmore smokiness. The ripe fruits are there. Once it gets to 17, 18, the ripe fruits start turning into tropical fruits. The peat tends to die away. So as they get older, the peat smoke is less flavour. It's more in the background and the ripe to tropical fruits.
So for those of you that are maybe not familiar with Bowmore Distillery or new to it, I see we've got people on the line from Denmark, we've got people on the line from Germany, we've got Shanghai, we've got Australia, and apologies if I've missed anybody else there as we go through. But when you think about Islay whisky, I think, Davey, it'd be true to say that Bowmore is truly a product of its environment, because you see that smoky influence coming from the peat. You see that slight maritime phenolic incantation coming through in the form of the medicinal notes in the peat. Is that something we should think about with the peat? When we're talking about the peat, Davey, what's important and what's different about Islay peat?
Islay peat's a wee bit heavier, it's a bit more intense. It's more the sphagnum moss is a wee bit more intense than the mainland peat, so it gives a wee bit more intensity in the whisky. But Bowmore, we're quite unique in Bowmore. We've got our own malt barns. There's only 7 distilleries in Scotland that have still got their own malt barns. So we take the barley in and we process the barley, and all the characters are picked up right through the process to the peats in the kiln, right to our new make spirit. So we're quite unique in Bowmore. We take it from barley through to the cask maturing.
I see I've got a question here from Johannes in Germany. Apologies if I've mispronounced that. You're malting your own barley. How much do you actually buy from other maltings? And I am still enjoying the last bit of my Bowmore legend.
Oh, legend, yeah, legend was a good one as well, a good introduction.
So in terms of the ratio, Davey, obviously we produce a percentage which is limited at Bowmore Distillery, as the Bowmore Distillery
we make as much as we can on site. We make about 30% of our production on site, so it's a high percentage.
And obviously in quieter times that percentage goes up slightly, and in,
yeah, absolutely.
In busy times, roughly about 30% would be our typical range there.
Yeah,
and just on that, Davey, I think when we were speaking the other day with Ron Welsh, there is at least some part of every floor malting included in every bottle of Bowmore. Is that correct?
Yeah, the blenders, master blenders, make sure that every core range bottle in Bowmore has got a proportion of our own floor malt for the signature character.
And I see an old blast from the past there in a Mr. Geert Biro. Any plans soon for another old release like the 1973, or even better, old 60s casks?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been, I tell everybody that comes to our tasting, quality's number one for us. We're laying down really good whiskies. We've got really good stuff maturing from the early 90s. Yeah, absolutely. Keep drinking Bowmore, the best is still to come.
And I also see we've got Georgie and the team on from Lagavulin. It's lovely to see the other distilleries. And I think that's what a lot of people don't maybe understand about Islay in general, David, is how we all help each other out.
Yeah, everybody knows everybody in Islay. I know Georgie well. Went to school with our brother. Used to play a lot of golf together. Yeah, it's a close-knit community. There's a bit of competition in the sales, but in the production side, everyone's keen to help each other and share learnings or help each other along. Yeah, no, it's really good. So
we've got another, actually this is a sad one. This is from Steph in Heidelberg, Slange from Heidelberg. I have a dram of Bottle Your Own from 2014's Fèis Ìle with me. Unfortunately, the bottle is almost empty after all those years. And I think, David, that maybe brings in a perfect segue. What have we got available at the distillery now, so that when people can come back to the distillery, when we open up, that they can come and they can find something that's really going to excite their palate and their taste?
We do about 5 or 6 bottle your owns a year. These are picked by the distillery staff, so we try to go through different cask types, different ages, to give everyone a different variation of Bowmore. We'll have about 5, 6 of these a year. We've got another distillery exclusive coming out just after we open up. It's at the start of a new series, so it's one to look out for and taste and get one when you hopefully can come to Islay soon. But no, we've got really good stuff in the pipeline as well.
And see another one from Johan in Germany. What do you think is your best Bowmore under €100? He's still enjoying the last bit of the Bowmore legend. What's your house pouring dram, Davey? What would be
Bowmore 15's fantastic quality, fantastic value for money. Yeah.
I think coming from Glasgow, I'm slightly cheaper because the Bowmore 12 has always been the one that's in my wheelhouse, with that extra sweetness that I think, especially as we are known as the Coca-Cola generation.
Well, I hope you're not mixing them.
Not mixing them, no, that would be blasphemous. There are certain things I'll never do. And Coca-Cola.
Oh yeah, Glasgow, but you can't take Glasgow out the boy.
Exactly. Some things never change, even with being in Chicago for 5 years. But you know, I think David earlier on spoke to the peat and about the balance of flavour, and that's something that is important to Bowmore, because as you drive around the island, you'll see that extensive swathes of the land are peat bog, and we've had questions in the past about, is the island going to disappear into the Atlantic? Because as we cut that peat away, it's slower to regenerate. The good news is that no, we're not going to disappear into the ocean. And a lot of people think as well with Atlantic distilleries, when you've seen Islay and you've seen where Laphroaig is, you've seen where Bowmore is, you've seen where Bruichladdich is, Georgie down at Lagavulin, all of these distilleries sit on the coast. And you know, over the years, remember somebody maybe about 10, 15 years ago asking us, David, about, you know, would the distillery disappear with global warming into the ocean? Here's one of the magical facts about the island of Islay. Like Scotland and like other parts of the Northern Hemisphere, we're undergoing something that's called isostatic rebound, which means we are bouncing back up out of the ocean. We were compressed underneath the polar ice cap. When the polar ice cap began to recede, there was the spread of plant life, and that plant life would grow in areas of excess water, and where you get excess water in an acidic environment, those organic materials begin to break down and they begin to form peat, and peat is baby coal. So each time that Davy takes you up onto the peat moss and he puts the shale down and he lifts out the peat sod onto to form the cruach, there's probably, what, Davy, about 1,000 years of history, because peat regenerates at 1 millimetre per year. So what Davy would do is he would cut the top off the peat, just that little bit that hasn't broken down at all and contains lots of sphagnum and grasses. That over time will break down into peat, but right now there's too much fresh vegetation in it, so he'll peel that back. He'll select the first and maybe a second peat depending on the peat bog, and we think that's what gives the perfect balance of the smoke to Bowmore. So what are the biggest changes, Davy? I've got a question here from Bram. What are the biggest changes made in the last decade, and why has the quality increased so much in these years?
I think not so much quality over the last decade, but over the last like 2.5 decades, I would say we've moved away from being more blended, reciprocal. We're now into single malts and totally focused on single malts. Single malts have totally taken off in the last 10-15 years as well. So probably in 2002, we were formerly MBD. We decided to go away from a bulk blended business to being a single malt specialist. So yeah, times changed and we moved with the times back then, and we keep moving forward as we go.
And that, Davy, was a decision that some people found strange back then, wasn't it? Because single malt didn't have the value or the perceived value that it does today amongst collectors and other people.
Yeah, absolutely. It was probably, good thinking by somebody, to be honest. Yeah.
Or fortuitous, one or t'other. Got a question from Jan Rose. Do you plan to release a Fèis bottling for the 2020 Fèis?
No, we don't. We had a lot of discussions, hard choices to make, and we feel that we do two festival bottles each year. One's a single cask, and it causes great demand, and it's great fun, and people queue up for it, and we feel it's a distillery exclusive. It's for people who make the pilgrimage to Islay. So through backwards and forwards, we decided no, we'll keep it back till next year, and it'll be a bigger and better event next year when everyone comes back. So we've decided to hold ours back.
It must be about 6 years, Davy, since I was at the Fèis, but I can remember the last time. You remember there was one couple that brought a full sofa to camp out overnight on?
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a party. I think that was the best party in the island that night, was in the car park.
Yeah, absolutely. They actually sent me an invite last night, but I couldn't get on. The people who usually queue had a queuing online event last night, so they kept the party going this year as well. I got a message they were well into the early hours of this morning as well, so the same characters had the same party this year that they would usually have.
I tell you, I just don't think I've got the engine for it now. A couple of drams and 10 o'clock and I've got to be tucked up with my book. Seen another one here from Mirko. It says, for me, the Bowmore Devil's Cask 3 was the best whiskey I ever had. Could you maybe talk a little bit about the Devil's Cask, Davy, and where the Devil's Cask came from? Because that's a really interesting story, I think, about a whiskey.
The Devil's Cask, up the top of the main street is a round church, and the story is it was built round for no corners for the devil to hide in. The devil came down Main Street and hid in one of our casks. So we did 3 different releases, Devil's Cask. The first 2 were 10-year-old, and the third one was a no-age statement. So they were fully matured in Oloroso sherry, fresh Oloroso casks. So they were deep and rich. Yeah, they were a good addition, yeah.
And there was a little story, wasn't it, that the devil was supposed to have fled the church one night and he was chased in what the locals believed into the distillery and supposedly escaped in a cask of whiskey or in a small puffer to the mainland, wasn't it?
Good market myth, and you're better at these stories than me, to be honest. You're the man.
And just looking on, I can see my good friend and colleague, our former colleague Gordon Dundas, is joining us from Glengoyne. I saw he was doing some stuff interesting, and that's the great thing about the whisky industry, is really you get a chance to see so many people, because we were looking, I think maybe about 11:45 today, and I think we've got about 27 countries on the line. So, wonderful thing about whiskey, it brings people together. And I think that's a perfect segue, Davey, maybe leading us into our second dram, because people are probably a little bit parched and need some refreshment.
So the second dram is my favourite out the current Bowmore core range. It's a 15-year-old darkest. So this one spends the first 12 years in bourbon casks, and it's finished for 3 years in first fill Oloroso sherry casks. So you can see the colour. It's mahogany in colour. It takes on a lot of colour from the first fill sherry casks. So this one on the nose is very, very sweet. You get more like stewed fruits coming through. You get a slight distinctive Bowmore smokiness, but as it gets older, the smoke dies away. This one's just like stewed fruits. You still get a bit of vanilla from the bourbon, the dark caramel toffee from the sherry. This one is a good value for money Bowmore. I would say if anybody's going to buy a good Bowmore for under €100, £100, as a gentleman asked earlier, this is definitely one to try.
And how would you drink this, David? Would you pair this with food? Is this just something you drink straight, or?
I think it's a good winter dram. This is a dram you'd have in the winter, a cold winter's night, sitting beside the fire.
It really has an earthiness to it, isn't it? You can really get that sense of the peat in there underneath the smoke, so you can see that medicinal iodine character as well as that surface smokiness. And just a little bit.
The 12's a wee bit more smoky. Yeah. The smokiness is camouflaged a wee bit with the darker fruit flavours and the stewed fruits.
And I think that's interesting because we saw earlier on, we had a couple of questions about the Bowmore Legend. And that one is was more about the medicinal character that comes through from the peat, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was more bourbon matured. Yeah, it was a wee bit younger, a wee bit more spicier, a wee bit more peatier as well, a bit more medicinal. Yeah. The Legend is still available in France. We still do Legend for the France market, so it's still available.
We got another question here. Oh, sorry, we've got John Stewart. He's coming from Dubai, drinking a 15-year-old darkest in Dubai. Wow, I thought Chicago was warm at this time of year. I'm pretty sure Dubai will be a whole lot warmer there. Looking at another question from... John
actually sent me a photo the other day. He flew over Islay. You could see the big strand down in the bottom through the clouds. So he passed over on Saturday, so we'll raise a dram to him.
And another question from Germany. How does collaboration with other distilleries on Islay look like? Is it friendly or is it rather competitive?
No, it's friendly, absolutely. We all get together, we'd all help each other. If somebody weighed a spare motor or pump somebody was looking for, we would give it to them or they would give it to us. Absolutely not. The sales are competitive out there, but the Islay atmosphere is still there amongst the community.
I think as well, Davey, with the sales, especially people that, originate in Scotland and they're travelling around the world, you used to see people like Gordon and, we would gravitate towards each other as a group because you tend to see those people more sometimes than you see your families. But I think the most wonderful thing about this industry is the camaraderie and, never really hearing anybody speak ill of another brand.
No, it's a small industry. Yeah, it's good how everyone's close and it's usually the same guys, same shows. Yeah, absolutely. It's good fun to go.
We have an anonymous coming in. Evening. I'm drinking the last of my manager's dram bottling. Other than Mizunara and Virgin Oak, are there any other experimental cask types being trialled at Bowmore?
Yeah,
you can tell us about, Davey?
Yeah, we've got good red wine, Chateau Lagrange. We took a sample for them today for another project we're looking at. They've been fully matured since 1999, so they're coming along really well. Ruby red in colour and like raspberries flavour coming through with a distinctive Bowmore smokiness. No, we've got good trial stuff and we've got more Oloroso hogsheads maturing just now as well. So no, we've got good trial experiment stuff coming along.
We got John Williamson from Pleasant Hill in California. He's drinking a Stillman Selection that he picked up at the 2017 Open Day. So could we maybe talk more about the Stillman Selection as well, Davey? Because that was something quite different, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was we did the series. You were there for the first one, Ian. You were Master Blender when we did the first one, the Maltmans.
Yeah.
The 1995.
That was probably the worst one of the lot, Davey, eh?
No, it's good. It was one of your better ones, honestly. No, that's a good one, really, seriously. The 1995 13-year-old. So we did the Maltmans. we worked through the series. So the maltman helped Ian when you were master blender to pick the series. Then we moved on, we did the mashmans, we done the stillmans, and then we done the warehouse one. And the marketing says, oh, that's the end of the series, we need to try something else. And I says, oh, what about me? And I says, what about you? I says, what about the manager's edition? And I says, oh, we never really thought about you. And I says, oh, thanks very much. Who do the phone at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning with all the breakdowns and all the hassles but me? But thanks for forgetting about me, a nice one. Yeah, so I managed to shame them into doing one for me as well. So.
And what was that, Davey? What did
the
you
manager's edition? It was 10 Oloroso hogsheads from 1997, bottled at a 21-year-old. It was 3,000 bottles exclusive to the distillery. The 3,000 bottles sold out in about 10 weeks, 12 weeks.
I think that's quite interesting, David, because we always get the questions about the Black Bowmore, and you'll remember back to this. I think it was 1993 we released 2,000 bottles, 94 2,000 bottles, and from memory it was 1,812 bottles in 1995.
Yeah.
I always think it's interesting when people ask us what our thought was back then. We really didn't have a thought, did we? It was, we've got some amazing aged whiskey.
Good luck as well, to be fair. Yeah. I think we had these good casks. We knew they were Oloroso sherry maturing from the 1964, and they took samples out in like 1992 to look at them, and when they took them out the casks, they were black and they were fantastic quality. They're the good 1964 character, and they kind of knew we had something special then. And they made nice wooden presentation boxes for them. They put them in the market for about £100 because that was quite expensive then, and that was really, I think, what kicked Bowmore off to be iconic and collectible. But no, we found some good stuff that the past generation laid down for us, to be fair.
And I'm sure some of the people will remember when you could still find those dusty bottles in far-flung liquor stores, and but then that's an interesting segue as well, David, to, you'll maybe remember this, that in 1997 when we did the Bowmore, was it 1955 or 1957? I can't remember what it was.
The 1955 40-year-old.
And it was stolen in Alberta, Canada.
Yeah.
So this bottle was ram raided in a store long before ram raids was really heard of. The bottle was taken hostage. Number of maybe about 18 months later, we received a letter from a lawyer in Miami to say, hey, I know where your bottle is. I would like to negotiate. And at that point, we felt that we had been on every national television and radio station in North America, and that we couldn't have possibly afforded to pay for the PR that actually came from that bottle. So I hope somebody out there enjoys that bottle. But I think that's an important point. We never created these whiskies back then, ever having an understanding of what the perceived value would be, and secondary market. It wasn't a thing that existed. I still remember some of the collectors, and actually my friend Biro, who's on, he's a great collector from Belgium, and I've spent some nights in Glasgow where they've been across at whiskey auctions buying crazy bottles of whiskey that we would then enjoy with friends. And I think that's the wonderful thing about these bottles. You always hope that somebody opens that bottle and really enjoys it with friends.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. They were what really kicked us off, to be fair. Yeah, a good find.
And arguably, probably that, McCallum and our friends at William Grant's with Balvenie. These were the three sort of most collectible whiskies, and then the old dusties, as they call them, began to come out as well. We've got an anonymous, but I suspect I know who this anonymous person is from Germany, and I suspect it's our friend Gavin Ryan Thompson. Good evening, all from Germany at the Bowmore #1 Vaults Whisky Lounge. Enjoying a dram of the Bowmore 15-year-old Fèis Ìle 2019. Nice to see you both. Hope you're all well. Slanjava, Gavin. And if you haven't seen it, Gavin he has a basement that he's turned into. It's basically a full reproduction of the vaults that we have at Bowmore, and it's absolutely amazing. And one of these days, Gavin, when they eventually let us out of this country and allow us to travel again, hopefully we can share a dram there in the future, and maybe we can even get Davey Turner and Linda to come across, and Linda can make sure that we behave.
Yeah, the 15. What's Gavin's thoughts on the 15? The 15-year-old festival last year, the bourbon is absolutely fantastic.
Can you tell us a little bit about it, Dave? Was it all bourbon? Was there sherry?
It was all bourbon. First all bourbon casks. It was 3,000 bottles. It was about 8 bourbon barrels that were married together. They were selected by 5 of us at the distillery for the festival bottle. It's really 15-year-old, nice wee bit of peat smoke, but really tropical fruits. Really.
I think that's the message you keep hearing here from you, is it's all about balance at Bowmore.
Yeah.
As well.
I'm sure Gavin will post his thoughts later on.
We've got a hello there from Cumbernauld. It's anonymous. We've got New York City. We've got Arizona. We've got somebody that's got saying Slanger with a Bowmore 10-year-old sherry and red wine. Dennis Hendricks, that's another old blast from the past, my friend, enjoying a 25-year-old. The one we had for our Bowmore podcast, sorry it was in Dutch and you couldn't understand. I'm sure that's benefited the Dutch people, especially when we used to go across to the festivals there, that they could pretend they didn't understand us at the end of the night and avoid us and save having to go to the pub with the Scottish people. Also see John Bryan's on, and John Bryan, we've worked with his father for, 28 years now, Davey? It's a long time.
Yeah, old John's still there, yeah.
Even from Glasgow in my glass tonight, I have the Tempest 6 from 2017, the Fèis Ìle 11-year-old and the Warehouseman's. He's having a party in his house. So, should we move on to the next dram, Davey?
Yeah, the next one is the third in the core range, is the 18-year-old. The 18's like dark mahogany in colour. It's got really good colour. This one is a marriage of bourbon and sherry. A bit more sherry than the 12-year-old married together. So these casks are brought together and married together before we bottle it. So the 18 is like, you get the sweetness, you get more like tropical fruits coming through in this one. This is the kind of age that Bowmore starts turning from the ripe to the tropicals. This is really nice on the nose.
It's got a lovely freshness to it as well, Davey, doesn't it?
Yeah,
despite the fact it's been in wood for 18 years, you can still see a lot of that flow.
Still fresh. This one is bottled at 43%. The 12-year-old's bottled at 40. The 15 and the 18 are bottled at 43, so they're just slightly higher. This one, if anybody's got this at home, does not need any water added at all. This one is pure.
I think this is what you used to say, Davey. You'll maybe remember Alistair Ross used to tell us that that was our old production director. We used to shout at us. He never told us anything, but when he used to shout at us, he would always talk about this balance of flavour and this complexity, and how when it got to 18 and 25 years old, it was as mild as milk.
Yeah, this one's creamy actually. This one's easy to drink, so smooth and creamy. Yeah.
Which I think, especially when you do taste a young Islay, you think, oh my God, how the hell can that be easy to drink? Because, you're slightly different, I think, for people that grow up in the islands. But, certainly the first time I tasted an Islay malt whisky, I thought I had been poisoned because it was such a unique and distinct aroma. And it was the gift that just kept on giving, and it didn't go away. It just kept lingering on the palate as well.
This one's got a fantastic finish. It's got a really fruity, tropical fruit like mango, papaya finish, and it's got just that wee bit of peat smoke in the background as well. It lingers on just towards the end.
Can you talk maybe, David, just a little bit about the peating at Bowmore? What level are we looking for in the grain, and then what level are we looking for in the residual spirit when it comes off the stills?
We look to get 25 to 30 ppm in our malt, and through the distillation we look to get 8 to 10 in distillation. So we lose about 2/3 through the process.
It'd be interesting to see. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the numbers would be elsewhere. It'd be interesting to see, if that's something that you see across all Scotch whiskies, that it loses so much, peat intensity there as well, especially with, and I'm thinking some of the really pungent ones that you may be seeing from our friends across at Bruichladdich with the Optimore, things like that. Seeing we've got Gregor Haslinger, his best event at Fèis 2019, Unlock the Hidden Treasures. That was great fun. Any plans to do anything like that in the future, Davey?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a full programme that was ready to go. The girls put a lot of work into it, and we had lots of good stuff for this year as well. So we won't reveal any of the stuff because I'm sure they'll be putting them in the back burner and using some of them next year. But no, we'll be back to normal hopefully next year and back to a full programme. No, we've got some good events. And
it looks as if Michael from Poznan in Poland is drinking the Bowmore 15-year-old, so he must be a fan of your favourite dram as well. We've got an anonymous as well that obviously, Davey, we had you'll remember back to these, we had Bowmore Darkest, we had Dusk, and we had Dawn, which were roughly 10 years in bourbon, 2 years in sherry. We had one that was 10 years in bourbon, 2 years in port, and 10 years in bourbon and 2 years in Grand Cru Bordeaux from Chateau Lagrange. And then we did a 16-year-old port matured, I think we did, when we did a 16 bourbon, 16 Oloroso and 16 port, and then we had a 23-year-old port. But I'm seeing here, do you have any plans on releasing a port cask only matured Bowmore? So it's whole life rather than a finish?
Yeah, no, we do. We actually looked at doing a festival bottle last year. Was a port matured, but it's coming along nicely. We did taste it and it's really good. So no, I definitely want to look for in the future. We do have good port maturing just now, yeah, and fully matured in port. That was first option we looked at for Fèis last year, but we kind of decided to leave it for a wee bit longer.
Yeah, interesting question again here from the Netherlands. I tend to find the older Bowmore is more peaty, like the old Mariner. Has it changed, i.e. the 15-year-old now, which I love? Thanks from Dennis in Holland, ambassador and the one from the podcast.
No, okay.
No, on you go, Davey. You go.
I would say the old Mariner was more bourbon based, so you're getting more of the true distillery character. The peat smoke would have been still much the same level. You'd have been getting more of the peat smoke because the bourbon, the lighter flavours. Now the Daskis, the sherry, maybe camouflage, or you get different flavours, and the peat smoke's maybe a wee bit in the background. But no, we've had the same phenol levels. Yeah. For many years. And
certainly with the Bowmore Mariner, what we used there, it was predominantly bourbon. There was some refill bourbon in there, and with a refill cask or a second fill cask, you'll actually see that it will act less as a filter. So when you char the inside of the cask, that char in the inside of the cask actually acts as a filter, and it takes out impurities, it adds desirable flavours, and it also interacts as well. You find that rate tapers off in a second fill cask, and with that second fill cask, it allows some of the smokiness to be more pronounced coming through. Okay, so what else have we got here? Hang on a minute, I think I've just skipped back up the questions by mistake. So we've got good evening, Mike from Falkirk, Bonnie, Scotland, with the 18-year-old Bowmore Dram, and it'll be interesting to see, Mike, when Gordon Dundas and the team at Iain McCallum open up Rosebank Distillery. That'll be a competitor for our sister distillery, Auchentoshan, as well. We've got Ian Aldouse drinking Devil's Cast 2 in Ottawa, and I realise I probably actually butchered that name, so apologies, Ian. And there seems to be a lot of 15-year-old here, Davey. It seems to be that a lot of people are really enjoying the 15-year-old. What's been your favourite Bowmore of all time? What was the one bottle you really aspired to or had your eye on, and what made you want that bottle?
I would say it was the 1955 40-year-old you talked about. It's an old style from the coal distillation. Yep. 1955 is an old vintage. It was only 306 bottles worldwide. It was bottled at 42.0. It's total like drinking tropical fruit juice. It's absolutely fantastic. For anybody who tried it, it's a must try. It's really hard to get and expensive now, but that's my all-time favourite Bowmore. Fantastic.
Apologies for anybody who saw me put an eye drop in. It's allergy season here in Chicago, and it's an absolute nightmare at the moment. So 1955, that was an interesting thing that you said there, David, the coal-fired. Could you maybe touch more on the coal-fired in the early 1960s?
So we were traditionally coal-fired up until 1963, and then the Morrison family bought over and they converted us, invested a lot of money. They converted us from coal into steam. So then the Black Bowmore actually was one of the first distillations from the new steam system they installed. So,
and that's an interesting point as well. When people ask about how whisky character has changed over the years, that's one area that dramatically impacts it. There was also a change in a lot of distilleries. Georgie and her team, they still use a lot of the worm tubs. But with us using the shell and tube there, we get slightly more contact with the copper after our distillation. Yeah, that slightly higher copper contact there that acts as a molecular filter, pulls out some of the heavier flavours that we don't want in there, and just allows for that more balanced character to come
1963 through. Previously was a bit, coal-fired, a wee bit more heavy, a wee bit more intense whisky. So from 64 onwards, was a bit lighter and fruitier from the different style of distillation.
And that would come, Davey, from them packing the coal underneath the stills and getting more charring on the base of the still, because it's a direct heat as opposed to indirect heat now, where you get a much more even dispersal of heat and warming up.
It'd be hard to control the flow as well.
Yeah. We've got a question from Andreas, Scotland's Glory. Question: when did you release the 3rd Vaults edition, and what kind of casks are you using for this?
The 3rd one is still to be decided. There's 2 more still to come, so we're working on the 3rd and the 4th. I'm sure if Linda's on, she'll have a better idea about that than me, but I think it's probably, they're still working on it just now.
And I think we've got a great question here from Jonathan, who's watching from Rochdale, Lancashire. I'm drinking the 15-year-old Slanger. What makes Bowmore different from other distilleries?
As I said earlier, we're on the centre of Islay. We're kind of mid-range between the north and the south and the peating levels. Bowmore, the malt barns adds a lot of fruity flavours going through. The clear wort gets us the fruitiness. So I would say we're a kind of mid-peated or a perfectly balanced style of whisky. It's a different style from north to south. Coincidentally, we're on the middle of the island, so the style of whisky is in between them both as well.
I think the great thing about the smoke as well is that you see that medicinal balance. You also see that slightly more smoky note that comes from the root system in the first peat as well. So it really is a balance of flavours in terms of the phenolics. It's a balance of flavour when we're talking about the esters that are formed. Also, the interaction gives you the aldehydes and those grassy and floral notes. So when we're talking about a perfect balance, what we're seeing is that in each of the expressions that you see with Bowmore, you will see the absolute heart of the brand, that thing that never changes. But each of these is a slightly different personality and attitude based on the age and the type of finish as well. But really, when we're talking about it, Jonathan, it's really about a perfect balance. We're not looking to be the most extremely smoky. We're not looking to be the lightest. We're looking for that balance of flavour and complexity in there. We have one here from Peter in Germany. How many ppms are used for Bowmore at 30 years old? Well, we only have one standard peating, Peter. As Davey said, we're about 8 to 10 ppm in the spirit. You will notice that ebbs off slightly later on. I mean, I worked in the laboratory for years, and I don't think we ever mentioned or measured the peat of something at Bowmore 30-year-old. People were too busy wanting to drink it. Gordon Dundas is enjoying the White Sands. Can you? I think, David, there was 2 came out, wasn't there? There was Bowmore Black Rock and Bowmore White Sands.
Gold Reef and White Sands was a.
Could you tell us a little bit about those?
They were part of the 3 series that were for global travel retail at one point, with Black Rock, Gold Reef and White Sands. So White Sands is 17-year-old, fully matured in bourbon. Yeah, a good dram, Gordon. It's got the true distillery character comes through in the bourbon casks. It's quite light, it's quite fresh, quite maritime-y, but still got the distinctive smokiness here. And
we've got a note here from Mai Kawashima. I'm a Japanese bartender. Please send a message for Japan. Now, have you done the Whisky Live in Japan, Davey?
No, I was round all the bars, different bars and events around Japan. Yeah, absolutely fantastic country.
So what was your most amazing thing about Japan?
The food was interesting and different, I would say. It would go from really, really good to just stuff you just couldn't suffer. But I was amazed at all the whisky bars that are there, and they've got so many different expressions, and the bar was full if there was like 7 or 8 people in it. It was just so exclusive and totally different to a night out in Scotland or anywhere around the world. The bars were really attentive, like 6 or 7 people in each bar, and they were totally stocked with distillery bottlings, every independent bottle you could think. Mash tun was one that was totally amazing.
Yeah. Is that the one that's downstairs through the 2 glass doors?
No, it's up the stairs. You go up the stairs, you could hardly find it.
Is that the There's so many of them. I think, Davey, that's probably the same for you. It's the same for most of us, that when you're traveling and you go somewhere in a far-flung country that's completely alien to you, you can't read, you can't understand the language at all, and you walk into a small bar and you see so many bottles that come from our small little couple of square miles of planet Earth, and it really
Yeah, absolutely.
It's emotional. It really does, stick in your heart, and just see how whiskey manages to bring people together. And I think we need more of that, especially in these times. We've got a note from Boris saying, David, when are you going to give us a single cask? I don't know if David's been, working some side gig out.
No, I haven't. Boris is starting to bottle his own independent stuff. He's a big fan of Lagavulin and a fan of Bowmore, and he's always looking for casks. He's a trier. God loves Boris. He's always trying. Keep trying, Boris. Someday you'll get there.
And unfortunately, Boris, I think this is a decision we took back in 2002, was not to sell any individual casks. And I don't see that changing for the foreseeable future. But who knows? The industry, we've seen so many changes. Certainly, I've seen it. Davey's seen it in the last 28 years. Be interesting to see what happens in the future. From Steve Lamond, do you produce all malt to the same ppm or phenol, or different batches different for different batches? So is it one standard phenol level?
Yeah,
Davey?
one standard phenol, yeah, 25 to 30, all the way, yeah.
We have from Sheng, DMS is always my favourite. Slanger to David, can you tell me a little bit more of the story about DMS? I'm not actually sure what DMS is.
Near that must be an independent bottling, I'm afraid. It's definitely not one from the distillery.
Does it mean distillery manager's selection?
Could
maybe?
be.
Okay, distillery manager's selection. It was 10 Oloroso hogsheads. We talked about it a wee while earlier. We talked about the Craftsman series. I was last in the series, so it's 10 Oloroso hogsheads from 1997. They were bottled at 21-year-old, and it was bottled at 51.7. It was 3,000 bottles exclusive to the distillery. They were sold through the shop, and they sold out in about 10 weeks. It was hand selected by myself.
Excellent. So let's go back through and just see what other interesting questions we've got here as well. Evening, I'm drinking the last of my Fèis 2017 Bowmore hand fill, 19-year-old, an incredible dram. Had you already selected this cask for this year's festival bottling? And will you be releasing 2 special bottlings for next year? If only one, is there any chance that you could make it a Mizunara cask?
We have bottled this year's festival bottles, we can tell you, and we will only be releasing this year's festival bottles next year. We won't be doing a double dint, it'll be one. And no, the Mizunaras are maturing quietly and nicely in the #1 vaults, and they'll be there for another wee while longer, unfortunately.
I think that's a nice chance to talk to Mizunara, because obviously Mizunara, Mizu means water, so effectively it's the water oak, and it comes from Hokkaido. You can also find some of it in Sakhalin and some of the other areas as well. Japanese oak holds a high percentage of water. It's also a pretty gnarly wood. It's not like American oak where you can cut good, long, solid staves. The waste on a Mizunara tree is quite excessive. Now, Suntory experimented with Mizunara way back when they first opened Yamazaki Distillery, 1924, and they began to experiment with Japanese oak, and they actually had a belief that Mizunara oak, or whiskey that matured in Mizunara oak, wasn't really that good. It was kind of left away in the warehouse. And then, a number of years later, Ken Sato and Inatomi-san were going through the warehouse, and they saw the jai on the cask, decided to have a little look, realised actually Mizunara oak ages incredibly well, but it takes a slightly longer time to interact with the spirit. The other thing is the rarity of the trees. We're fortunate with Suntory that we have a relationship with the University of Tokyo, where we help them to sustainably manage their forests. So any Mizunara casks that you see has come from a sustainably managed forest, because the oak is in short supply. I think I lost your picture as well, Davey. I'm not sure if that's just my connection here. Yeah. Another one from Johan. How many casks turn out to be bad casks that cannot be sold in single malts?
We've got a quality management system in place. We trace the barley from the field right through the process. So some casks are obviously better than others, but none of them are ever that bad that we can't blend into or marry into the core range. So no, there's no waste at all.
And that's an important point as well, that any of the master blenders will be looking at that stock each and every day. They'll look at a number of casks every day, so it's almost Groundhog Day, where all you do is spend your life nosing casks. And it's down to the master blender, and obviously Davey has the oversight every day at the distillery as well. So two super important people there. Also seeing that our friend Katrina, who works in the visitor centre, she's enjoying a wee dram of last year's festival edition tonight in the house, and I believe congratulations are also in the order too, Katrina. We've got Frank, the Dutch biker. He's got greetings from the Netherlands. Any plans for single cask releases, Davey?
What was that question, sorry?
Have you any plans for single cask releases?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be doing single cask releases, bottle your owns from the distillery, and different markets around the world. We usually do about 4 single casks a year. So yeah, there's a couple of different markets we're looking at to get single casks just now. I can't reveal which countries they are, but yeah, there's stuff coming later on this year, hopefully, if things clear up a wee bit.
And we have a question here from Germany, from Bonn, from Dom Hofner. Hello from Bonn. Did the recipe change when the name Darkest changed to just 15-year-old?
No.
No,
it's still the same. It's still 12 years in bourbon and 3 years in Oloroso sherry. We dropped the Darkest name because Darkest used to be the darkest Bowmore whisky we had, but now we've got the manager's edition was darker, and probably the 18-year-old for global travel retail. Dark and Intense is darker, so the name Darkest was confusing, but it's still the same whisky, still the same makeup.
Interesting, David, that when we did move from the old Darkest with the old packaging prior to 2008, it went from about 12, 13 years old up to the 15. So there was more of that and more elongated aging in the secondary sherry casks.
Yeah, the older Darkest was a no age statement as well. So when we moved to age statements, it went a wee bit older.
Yeah. Now here's one that I think there couldn't be a better question on Fèis Day. What are your thoughts on hand-filled hand-filled bottles being sold out in one day and soon widely available on auctions?
It shows how popular Bowmore is. To be fair, we put it on sale and nobody knows it coming in sale, so it shows a great interest and demand for Bowmore. And yeah, once people get a hold of the bottles, it's entirely up to them what they do to them. Yeah, it's good. Everyone's got their pluses and minuses. It's maybe a shame, but we limit it to very few bottles per person, just depending on the size of cask. And some people keep them, drink them, some sell them on. Gives an opportunity for somebody around the world to get a distillery exclusive as well. So I would say there's got the pros and cons to it, to be honest.
And I think that is an important point, Bram, that once we sell the bottle, we have no control over it. So we've done everything that we can to limit the number of bottles that people can produce, even queuing outside, these sorts of things. There is no perfect solution to this, and we have no control over the secondary market. And the secondary market is largely driven by supply and demand. If people will pay the price and the supply is there, that's where the secondary market figures come from. And I see that frustration. I feel that frustration sometimes myself when you see a bottle yourself that you think, oh, I'll go and buy a bottle of that, and suddenly you're $1,000 for a bottle that was significantly less when it came out. But unfortunately,
but then it's good for collectors as well. People will buy them, hold on to them for 15, 20 years, sell them on, and you get to try stuff that was bottled 20, 30 years ago. That's how a lot of us have built up their whisky collections as well. So yeah, it's really, really interesting.
And I know I've certainly done it over the years. I've bought bottles for my niece and nephews and put them away for them, and they either have one hell of a 18th or 21st birthday party, or they can really enjoy getting to know single malt when they get older. We've got a question from Sabine I'm not sure where she is actually. You mentioned there are plans to slow down production processes a while back. Do you already have some liquid produced like that?
Yeah, from early 92, we were kind of higher volume, faster production up until like 1991. So 92, 93 onwards is much slower, longer fermentation. So you can see that in the bottle your owns we sell from the distillery, like the 95 that was into the managers, into the Maltman's edition. So yeah, from early 90s, stuff like that is all really slow, high quality, good drinking stuff. Anybody who's been to the distillery can see that from the bottle of owns we sell as well.
One of the most difficult names to produce here. Turvisavu from Finland is asking, is it possible that they'll be able to get Bowmore Darkest again someday?
No, not in the foreseeable future. We're keeping, the core range is steady just now, so it'll be the 15-year-old that's in the core range just now.
And we seem to have a lot of people on here that love the Darkest and the 15-year-old going through these questions. From Mario Campa, must be a very, very different evening, Katrina. So sad not to be there with you all, and equally we're sad that you're not here. Obviously, I'm stuck in Chicago and Davey's on Islay, but we certainly look forward to welcoming everybody back to the island and get back to what the Fèis is all about. Where
the good thing for Katrina, it'll be the only Thursday Fèis that she won't have a hangover, because we usually get her down after it, so everyone will feel fresh tomorrow.
I've had a few of those bad mornings myself. From Sebastian Jaeger, what was the story behind the single cask for Canada? I have a bottle open and wonder how it came about. We in Germany absolutely need such a bottling.
The single cask went to Canada. We usually, as I said earlier, we do about 4 single casks for around the world each year. So they mainly go to our biggest markets, and it's a bit an incentive for people to get our sales up and get us recognised in these countries. So it's usually about 4 a year, and they're targeted at different markets around the world.
And also Mario's saying, David, did you really say that the 1955 is your favourite dram of all time?
Yeah, absolutely. 1955 is the best. Yeah, fantastic.
Now we have a question here from Yoshi from Tokyo. I want to visit Fèis Ìle at least once in my life. So my question is, can we taste 1960s again? Is there a difference in distilling or mashing or malting between 1960s and now? Excuse me. Well, there's been a number of changes, and I think Davey alluded to that earlier on. We moved from direct firing to indirect firing, and that makes a difference as well. You also realise now that distilleries are more efficient than they probably were previously as well. So there's some changes that you will see. Obviously, as well, you get the changes in the quality of the grain as well. So there's variations that things change over the years. The great thing about Bowmore is that you can still see that exotic fruitiness when it, as Davey said, it gets up to about that 20 years old, it really begins to build. So no, you will never see that exotic fruitiness that you'll see in a black Bowmore, in a Bowmore 12 years old. But when that Bowmore ages, you'll begin to see more of that fruitiness comes in. And when it gets up to about 40 years old, you're definitely going to see some of that exotic fruitiness, 60s style, come back through. Anything to add on that, Davey?
No, I think the stuff we've got maturing, as I say, from the early to mid 90s, once it gets to 35, 40, I think it'll be top class stuff as well.
One question from James Mackay. General question, should whiskey be collected or should you drink it?
I think a bit of both. I usually buy 2 bottles, one to drink and one to keep. So yeah, I think a bit of both. It's worth drinking and tasting what you've got, and if you keep one and sell it on, it's good for people who are collecting, maybe the next generation, or 20, 30 years time. If you sell that on or leave it to somebody, they get to try stuff from the old as well. So no, I always buy 2, one to drink, one to keep. And
I think arguably this is probably my favourite Bowmore of all time. This question's about Davey. Any Fino casks maturing in the warehouses? Really enjoyed it when I got a chance to try it a few years ago. Also enjoyed the White Sands and the Enigma Tonight Squall from Sweden. The
1964 Fino, it was fantastic.
It was exceptional, wasn't it? It was all unctuous. I remember speaking to John Hansel from the Malt Advocate and saying to him, it's literally like a glass of exotic fruit juice. Yeah. And he kind of laughed at me, and later on that night he called me back to go, oh my god, this is like a glass of exotic fruit juice, what did you do? And that's the beauty of Bowmore, that it gets to that extended age and you start to see those rancio notes that are so unique to super aged whiskies. You also see it a bit in super aged tequila and super aged rum, but it really is a holy grail if you begin to get that unctuous fruitiness coming in at the 40 years mark. From Bethania, Slanger from Edinburgh. I was lucky enough to attend your Fèis Day last year, which was a brilliant day. Could you please share your thinking behind the surprise cask 666 bottling? it was really special.
It was just an interesting thing to do. That one was actually a single cask from the manager's edition, and when I was tasting it, I got round to them and I thought, wow, this is a fantastic cask, and I looked at the number to keep it in my head, and coincidentally it was 666. So through festival time, we're always looking for something different to give the people who come and enjoy our day, and we came up with the idea, do a bottle drop. Just nobody knew. There was 5 of us in the distillery, knew this was going to happen. We were all in a room, we swore with each other, nobody lets this secret out or we pull the plug in this, and we just announced it, and it just went down really, really well. We actually used it, I used it in a tasting first and asked everybody what they thought of it. Do you think it's worth doing as a single cask? And they're all like, wow, let's tell us when this has come out. And we just dropped it in the afternoon, and it was a total, went down like a bomb, and just sold it out in 2 minutes, and the feedback we had was amazing. So yeah, it was good fun.
Now, being a superstitious Islander, Davey, were you not tempted to put cask 666 in the back of the warehouse and forget all about it? I know I would have been.
No, the taste of this one was fantastic, honestly. It was all worth, the devil of it was again. Yeah.
So we got another question, excuse me, from Germany, and this time it's Elliot. He's American. I'm tasting number 1 12-year-old, 15-year-old and 18-year-old, but sadly recently ran out of 10-year-old. I assume, sorry, it was 10 at the start. I had a blast at Fèis Ìle 2017, and I've already booked a place for Fèis Ìle 2020 with an even bigger group of friends and family. I'm looking forward to seeing another visit to Bowmore. I think that's a great thing about Bowmore, isn't it, David? You go all over the world and you meet people all over the world, and whether you've met them at Fèis, I think that's certainly something that we see with whisky in general in the whisky community. It truly is a community where we're all friends and colleagues first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to meet old friends, and it's good to welcome new people as well.
And I certainly don't think, outside of the Islay Festival, the Speyside Festival and the Campbelltown Malt Festival, it's about celebrating each other, and that's a truly unique industry. I can't imagine Apple celebrating the latest release of the Samsung phone, but in Scotland we actively promote each other's brands, and it's a wonderful, wonderful industry. Okay, so I think we've got time probably for about 2 more questions in here. We've got Robin York. How do you rate the Amazon Bowmore 19-year-old Chateau Lagrange in comparison to other Bowmores? Is it good stuff?
Yeah, no, the Chateau Lagrange has been fully matured. Yeah, it's really nice. Definitely worth getting a bottle. It's coming out in 2 different releases. The 19-year-old, yeah, it's like fruity from the red wine and still the distinctive Bowmore smokiness. No, it's a limited release and definitely worth buying and trying.
And David, we get a question from Simon Brooking. David, are you doing anything special on the 4th of June to celebrate 30 years at Bowmore?
No, there's nothing in the pipeline. You just grow old gracefully and kid on, we're not as old as we are, to be honest. No.
Well, happy birthday for that coming up, or happy anniversary, my friend. That's a great achievement. We actually have one here from one of our colleagues up at Glengarry, David. So it's a question for David. Do you ever visit other sister distilleries in Scotland, like Auchintosh and Glengarry, Ardmore, or around the world like Yamazaki or Jim Beam?
Yeah, we go around, we have meetings monthly at all the different distilleries, so usually up at Glengarry twice a year, Ardmore a couple of times a year, same as Auchintosh. Yeah, we go to Ireland once a year. I've been to Yamazaki in Japan. Yeah, no, it's good to go and see what other people are doing, yeah.
I think to truly be a master of your craft as well, Davey, you have to have an appreciation of what other people are doing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And seeing, because we can all learn from each other. We got hi from Belgium here. Bowmore Girl having a dram of the 25-year-old Seagull with a good cigar. Wanted to ask about a Bowmore finished or matured on port cask, but already got my answer. Apologies for that one. I should have read first and followed down. So we got Bill from Princeton in New Jersey. Could you talk about how you make your cuts, heads, middle and tails?
So we've got a wee bit longer 4 shots. We do about 35 minutes, 4 shots, and then we go into spirit about 74%. We run our middle cut about 16 to 18 litres per minute in each still. Very, very slowly, so only the finest and lightest of vapours get over the neck of the still and into the condenser, and we cut off at 61%. So our average strength of the new make is about 69%.
And I've just been corrected, folks, that apparently this doesn't finish right now, that we've got about another 25 minutes to go. So we'll continue on and hopefully get to the rest of your questions. We have a question from Rebecca. How long is your fermentation period now? What was the duration of the 92-93 period? You said was a longer period?
In the late 80s, early 90s, we were about 48 hours. It was just very, very young. So now we're 66 hours, and steady 66 hours a week. So it's a good steady fermentation.
And that extra fermentation, Davey, that's where a lot of the estery characters will develop as well, isn't it? For that pronounced fruitiness that is Bowmore as well.
We're on the mash tun a bit slower as well, so the wort's a bit clearer. Run a bit slower, add the cocktail yeast, and on the wee bit longer fermentation gives a more fruitier wash.
Okay, hang on a minute. I'm just going down through these questions and I keep losing my place. Good evening and greetings from Finland. Is there any kind of hidden dream or unfinished experiment that Master Distiller of Bowmore would like to make in the future? So what would be your dream, Davey? If you could make a dream whiskey, what would it be?
We've actually created it in 2016. We've laid down some. It's actually 4-year-old today. 27th of May 2016. We filled 100% floor malt new make spirit into casks. So we tasted it today actually because it's 4-year-old and it's maturing really, really well. It's more like the old style Bowmore. Fantastic.
And that's not something that we've typically done, Davey, is it?
No, we started in 2016 and we're doing a small batch every year.
Awesome. I need to get that because I haven't actually tasted that. We have a question here from Cass. What's your favourite good food pairing with a 15-year-old? Oysters are just great.
15-year-old darkest. I would say it's more for a dessert. You take it with like a caramel or a toffee dessert. Or in Cranachan's really nice as well. The 12 goes better with seafood than oysters, I would say. It's a bit more maritime-y, freshy, a wee bit smokier.
So you maybe get more of the brininess that
absolutely.
You feel
it's more a dessert from.
But you know, one thing I'd say, Cass, I really enjoy scallops with Bowmore Darkest. And that is literally where you begin to caramelise it on one side, just a little flash of Bowmore into the pan. And what you see is that alcohol acts as a poultice and it actually draws out the flavour of the scallop, and you get more of that maritime brininess to the scallop as well. But like Davey said, typically Bowmore Darkest is more your dessert style whiskey, which is your dark chocolate, these sorts of things, candied fruits. From Nicholas Ardley, David, what are your top 3 Bowmores that you consider the hardest to find and collect?
It's got to be the Giaconis, Italians. The Italians had a great nose and eye for whiskey in the 70s. They bottled a lot of fantastic Scotch whiskies. And
was that the Samaroli?
No, the Giaconis came out slightly after that, but the Samaroli is really hard to get as well. So the Italians were ahead of the game with single malts. They were bottling quite a lot of Scotch in the mid to late 70s, and all these bottles went back to Italy and really, really hard to find.
We got one from Tom from Japan. In 1993 is a great vintage, I know. What do you think is important to create good vintages?
The barley variety's got a difference. It depends on the weather. It all starts in the barley. And then 1993 is probably a good vintage. I would say we were in small production in 1993, so there'll be a lot of Bowmore malt in the 1993 vintages, with a high percentage of floor malt in our vintages in.
And you touched on it there, Davey, when there's a lot of things come into it, so the seasonality as well. You have to watch very carefully, as David alluded to, the way that we treat the grain, because if it's been very wet before the harvest, it can encourage the husk to strip away. And that husk acts as a filter in the mash tun, and it allows the clear liquid to drain and be collected and give us a fruity wash. But additionally, that's where the smokiness actually sticks onto. And if we lose the husk, we would lose the smokiness. So like Davey said, each and every stage of the process is under the watchful eye of a craftsperson. And trying to look here. I think some of these are, let's read through. Slanger from Germany. Hope to be with you again next year. Rob agrees with us about collecting and selling. If you do it well, you can fund the buying and enjoyment of bottles you would not be able to afford otherwise for free. And I think that's what it is. You know, there's only, you know, so much we can do, and the value is in the eyes of the consumer. Fèis Ìle, coming on about celebrating each other. I absolutely think that's the greatest thing about the Fèis Ìle, is you get to see people that you haven't seen in such a long time, and you know, it's very rare that you walk down any street in Scotland and you may see somebody from Japan, from Korea, from Scandinavia, from America, from Australia, from all over the world in a small street in Scotland. You know, certainly when we were kids growing up, was unheard of, and it brings such a multicultural awareness to Islay that long may the Fèis Ìle and the wonderful job it does continue. Got a question here from Sammy in Arizona. Any upcoming wine cask exclusively matured bottles coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said earlier, we've got some 1999 fully matured in Chateau Lagrange, so we're looking and monitoring them closely, because they're coming ready to even do a wee bottle your own at the distillery in the next year or 18 months, because they're maturing fantastic, much like the gentleman asked about the 19-year-old from Amazon exclusive, slightly much the same as that.
We have from Landshut in Bavaria, the 666 cask was really very special. I still think I would have put that in the back of the warehouse in the superstition. Another question from Steph: as one's senses seem to slow down when you get older, is it the same with tasting quality? Therefore, would you recommend to drink the good stuff now instead of keeping it for retirement?
No, I think you've got to enjoy it as you're going along as well. Nobody knows what's round the corner, and you've got to enjoy and appreciate what we've got today and keep some for the future as well.
And you know, I think that is an interesting one, because certainly you have a more acute sense of taste and smell when you're younger, and most master blenders are super tasters. But you do lose some of that accuracy as you get older. However, it should never spoil your enjoyment of drinking, because I think, you know, drinking is much about the occasion, the people you're with, the things you're doing, and the things you're celebrating or remembering as well. And there's never a bad time to do any of that. Would you ever consider a finish on non-traditional casks like a beer finish, David?
No, it's something we've never done at Bowmore, to be honest. It's maybe one for the future. Ron, the master blender, I'm sure will be better to answer that. But yeah, we've got a lot different cask types maturing as well, so yeah.
And I see from Ian, he's complimenting me on having the second biggest mug he's ever seen. Being Scottish abroad, we drink tea like it's coming out of our ears, so we drink about 6 gallons of these a day. Keeps us going. Can't be whiskey all the time, or even the Scots would fall down. Donna Andrews from Mill Valley in California. Davey's got a great question here. Are there any places you can reveal where one might taste the 1955?
No, it'd be quite difficult nowadays. I'm sure there's the odd bar in Japan's bound to still have that opened. I can't think of anywhere.
There was, I'm trying to think, there's a chap called Max Reedy, and I think it was Delmonico's in Las Vegas that had it available by the pour. I'm not sure what price by the pour would be, and I'm pretty sure it'd be, you know, a couple of $100 for the pour, but they did have that. Where that bottle is now, I'm not sure if they still have any of it left, but if you ever get a chance to go to Las Vegas, try Delmonico's. They had an incredible selection, and they did at one point have that bottle available to try.
Keep an eye at old and rare whiskey shows as well. They appear at these from time to time as well.
From Anonymous, do you add the long fermentation and short fermentation mixes together to make an average 66 hours of fermentation?
No, it's 15 mashes a week at 66-hour fermentation. It's steady 66 all week.
Okay, Davey, you're going to love this one. This is one that we've seen over the years coming back up, and this is in Germany. Some Bowmore bottlings are smelling very floral or perfumed, and like a kind of ore with a minerality, and very different to the standard. Where does this come from? Some say this was Jim doing it.
The FWP we're talking about, yeah, to put it politely. Yeah, it came from the 80s into the early 90s. high volume, as we talked about earlier. I remember when I came into the distillery, the wash was going into the stills at 44-hour-old. It was still bubbling away, so it was high volume. The stills were rushed through. We were doing 18, 19 mashes a week. The quality of casks then wasn't great either. A lot of it was going into the second and third fill. So yeah, it was all for blends back then, bit for single malts, and yeah, it was just a process, and we've changed and got away from that, to be fair. Yeah, it's a bad era for Bowmore, and we know that, and we appreciate we get the feedback often, but we're thankful from 90, 91 we've got through that bad spell.
And Peter, just to add on to that, I don't think I don't think we would necessarily attribute to one person. I think it was a process at the time. The heat was running a little bit higher. It means that we produced beta-ion, which gives you that floral characteristic there. But I've heard rumours over the years that it was because it was put into a cask that previously held yeast. I also heard that it was a violet soap that came from the co-op and was put in as an anti-foaming agent into the still. I can absolutely tell you that it was neither of those, and it originates from running the stills particularly hard, and that's why most distilleries now run their distilleries slightly cooler.
It was hard to get casks back then as well. Good quality casks were hard to come by as well. We're filling a lot of second, third fill hogsheads and bad barrels as well, to be fair.
And now we've got a challenge going, Davey. I think we need to go to Bavaria because they're going to show us some bigger mugs filled with the best cold beer. That sounds like absolutely fantastic right now, especially as we're stuck here. Question from Gavin Ryan Thompson. Ian, a question for you. Remember the time at Springburn Bond? Wow, that was a long time ago. I haven't been there since, what, 6 years? When you showed me the way water interacts with whiskey and also the other way around, could you explain? So we're talking esterification and saponification. So as a blender, one of the tricks that I found is when you were looking at a whiskey in a relatively short time and wanted to see the different layers of it, it would be quite difficult. Normally you would look at a whiskey over a period of time, and when you look at it over a period of time, you get to see the individual nuances of the spirit. And years ago, we were working with an old parfumer. I was just a young kid in the laboratory. I think I was probably about 17 years old. And we had a parfumer that was across from France, and he was talking about esterification and saponification and the different way that he looked at aromas in a short time. And he actually taught me that if we add some water to the glass with an equal measure of whiskey on top, and then in another glass we do a measure of whiskey with equal water on top, what you will find is you'll see the lighter notes where the whiskey doesn't need to fight its way up through the water barrier as it's beginning to mix, and you'll see some of the more heavier denser notes where the water sits on top of the whiskey. So yeah, esterification and saponification. So thanks for taking me back to laboratory days, Gavin. Got enjoying the 1999 Sherry Cask 2117 from the hand-filled tour last year, David. Thanks for selecting this. Feel like I'm on Islay right now. Is that not just an amazing thing for you to hear, David?
Yeah, fantastic, especially when the bottle of runs are selected by the distillery team ourselves and sold exclusive here. Yeah, I can remember that when it was a dark sherry. It was really rich and sweet, and yeah, fantastic, really dark in colour.
And again, I think this shows you, there's a sense of community that arises around about the Fèis, but there is a sense of community that lingers long after the Fèis. And we have a saying, it's actually with our Jim Beam distillery, that you come as friends and you leave as family. And I kind of think that is what the Fèis is all about. You come and visit us, we're friends, and by the end of the Fèis, everybody's all family and keeping in touch. David, how does it feel to be the manager of a distillery in the best town on Islay? I have a sneaking suspicion, David, that this might be a resident of Bowmore that posted this, as it's anonymous.
I'll talk about the distillery one, but I wouldn't say it was totally the best village in Bowmore. I travel 10 miles from Port Ellen every day, so I go back to God's country every night. So it's good to see how well and appreciated Bowmore is around the world. Yeah, to get tourists from all around the world appreciating our single malts, fantastic.
And one question, David, do we have any plans for expansion of Bowmore Distillery? And what would be the implications of that?
No, we don't have any plans to expand. We've still got room for growth with the current production and the sales, and we've got plenty of good age stocks maturing as well. So no, there's no plans in the near future. We've got the pros and cons of being a bit bigger. Yeah, but you want to keep the same fermentation vessels. You probably need to up your malt barns to get the same quality in the new make as well. So it's got its pros and cons, but no, we've got good age stocks maturing, we've got good inventory, and we've got comfy capacity for up in production as well.
And do you have any intention, Davey, of building any more warehouses on Islay?
No, we don't just now. No, we've got 3 warehouses here. We've got one at the distillery, 2 up the road, and we try and keep them to full capacity each year, but there's no plans to build bigger warehouses either.
Could you maybe tell us, David, the story of the number 1 vaults? Because it's obviously a very famous building in the whisky industry. Can you give us a little bit more background for those that are not familiar with this?
So Bowmore's one of the oldest distilleries in Scotland. We're the oldest in Islay. We date back to 1779. The number 1 vaults is down beside the sea. Its original part of the building dating back to 1779, so it's the oldest Scotch maturation warehouse in the world. In there, it's old-fashioned, big, thick stone walls. The temperature never really changes from summer to winter. It's 6 to 8 degrees all year round. The waves come up and crash in the wall, so the casks maturing in there are cold, damp, take in the maritime flavours, totally perfect conditions for maturing the whisky.
And would it be safe to say, David, that really was the old footprint of the distillery?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the original part, and it's still the original building.
Okay, let's see if we've got another couple of questions going through here. So Bowmore is aging very well. This is from Bram van Glebeck. Bowmore is aging very well in both bourbon and sherry casks. What are your personal favourites?
I like them both. There's an occasion for them both, but I find that the Bowmore, you get the true distillery character shining through in the bourbon casks. You get the Bowmore character there more than the sherry. The sherry kind of camouflages it a wee bit with the darker, richer flavours. I like a Bowmore bourbon about 17, 18, 19-year-old. You get the true distillery character.
It gives you that really bright floral fruitiness coming through, doesn't it?
All maritime, smoky.
Yeah. And that was kind of the signature, David, of the old 17, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, old 17 is a good one. Anyone who's got a bottle of that's definitely worth trying.
Question here from Rory. Not sure what this one, David. You might have the answer to this. Do you have much of the lighter distillate aging that we saw in the 90s bottling?
What was that question? Sorry.
So it was, do you have much of the lighter distillate aging that we saw in the 90s bottling? That's from Rory. Rory, we do one peating level and one distillation cycle, so there's no actual changes to the distillation cycle. It's perhaps down more to the age of the woods that the whisky matured in, that's giving you that character. Sometimes you find a cask that's had less activity previously taken out of it. We'll take a little bit more out of it and yield what feels slightly lighter on the mouthfeel, but we only produce one distillate style. We have from Martin in Lucerne, Switzerland, Davey. How many hand-filled casks have you released up to today?
We're at 33. We've done 33. That's over about 5 years.
And did they go to all different markets, Davey? Or were they specific markets?
No, they're distillery exclusives. It's for
just distillery exclusive.
Yeah. It's an experience that people come to the distillery, they travel, they make the pilgrimage, they go down to the warehouse and they fill their own bottle and label it themselves and take it away. They get a wee sample as well.
So if we were to ask you, David, what is your, and we're going to get beat up here because I realise Georgie and her team are on the line. What is your favourite other Islay distillery?
I think the Lagavulin 16, not just because Georgie's on, and Georgie's now moved to Port Ellen. So the Lagavulin 16 is fantastic. I think it's always a steady dram. Yeah, very good as well. That's my second after Bowmore Darkest.
Do you know, after Bowmore, I think it would be Fèis Ìle for me. And I think maybe it's much like that, you know, that bright bourbon cask note that really love from Islay as well. Okay, I think we're just getting down to, I think we maybe got one or two more questions. I think we maybe actually caught most of the the questions here. So maybe, David, this gives us maybe 10 minutes to talk about, you've travelled the world, you've experienced different markets, you've experienced, what's the greatest thing about taking Bowmore to the world? What's the thing you enjoy the most?
I think it's changed over the last few years. I think it's good to see a lot younger people are appreciating single malts as well. When we grew up in the 90s, it was kind of an old man's drink, and I think it's really it's good to see how many folk know about Islay and the whiskies that are there, but the young that are drinking whisky and appreciating around the world is absolutely amazing to me.
And what's your favourite market to visit?
That's a hard one. I would say China. China's a really good market. The food's fantastic. The people are really young. We've got a fantastic team in China, the Beam Suntory China. They're really enthusiastic. They're really keen in Bowmore, and they're really keen to promote us. And yeah, I think China's fantastic and an up and coming market.
On your travels, was there anything that ever shocked you? Were you shocked that, wow, I enjoyed that, or oh, I didn't expect that?
Probably the food in Japan. You go out one night and the food was fantastic, and then you'd be hungry the next night and you go, oh, what they would put in the plate, you'd be like, oh no, I just can't suffer that, to be honest. Yeah.
I've always found that I mean, you'll know yourself when you go with Suntory, you sit down and food that arrives and eat it. But I always find that Asian way of eating is super interesting when it comes to whiskey, because they have that umami meatiness and brothiness that we don't traditionally have in our Western cuisine, which I think arguably pairs very well with enjoying whiskey at the meal occasion. Any thoughts on that, Davey?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good to go to these different markets and see how people drink whiskey, and they drink it with their meals, and how they all drink it differently. When you talk about Japan, they're mainly highball. They very rarely order a straight whiskey. So yeah, it's appreciated totally different in different cultures and around the world.
And where's your favourite bar? If we said to you, you can have one drink in one bar in one city, where would it be?
I think it would be the Mash Tun in Japan. It's amazing. It's only a wee narrow place. It's probably the hall in your house is bigger. It's just so small. It's like 6 or 7 people, and it's full, and people are trying to get in, and oh no, we're full tonight, and you're like, oh, there's 6 people in here and it's full, but the walls are just wall to wall with distillery bottlings, independent bottlings, the bar's full. Just totally amazing, and how much knowledge they've got is phenomenal to all the bottlings as well.
And you're celebrating your 30th year with Bowmore. So thinking back to 1990, Davey, when you walked through the gates of Bowmore, what was your ambition?
I was only a young lad. I was just lucky to get an opportunity to start at 16, and yeah, just took every day, and as you progress through, you get more interested in the processes, and people teach you, and you learn off the last generation. And what we're doing, we're selling and marketing the stuff the last generation made for us. We're making good stuff, and we just hope the next generation hand it down and carry on the tradition like we've done.
And when you think about your career, you've worked under some amazing people, Jim McEwen, Iain McPherson, Isla Campbell. Who would you say is really the one that really sparked your interest and love for all things Bowmore and what Bowmore could be?
I think it was Willie McKechnie. I went on shifts with Willie. He was a quiet guy.
He was on the Distillers, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was in the Distillers, and yeah. I worked in shift for about 15 years with Willie, and what Willie didn't know about the mechanics or the makeup of Bowmore wasn't worth knowing, so I learned a lot from him. Good moves, bad moves, different moves, but he knew it inside out. He knew everything, and I gained a lot of knowledge and experience from Willie. I would say he's the one that's learnt me the most.
And Davey, you'll probably remember this, because I remember this when I was at Bowmore myself. When you would ask him a question, he never gave you an answer. He would go, "Aye, well," and then he would walk away. Well, and he thought, have I offended him? And he would come back 5 minutes later and give you the answer. But it took a little bit of getting used to, because you always thought, maybe I've asked a really silly question. He thinks I'm such an idiot. And in actual fact,
I always thought about his answer, and
he would always go away.
It was a genuinely answer. Yeah, he would never change his mind.
And I remember as well, Davey, you might remember this. I can remember being up we had a group in, I think, from Mexico. Ginger was still at the distillery as well. And one of the Mexicans asked Big Willie what word in the Gaelic means fast. And I think I'll always remember Willie's answer. It was, there is not a word in the Gaelic that conveys such a sense of haste as mañana. And I thought it was just a brilliant way of really showing that difference in the, just going to an island, how it changes the pace of life and it slows down, even just being, 100 miles from the city of Glasgow.
Yeah, different life, Isle time.
Absolutely. So you've got an extensive collection, David. What's the most prized bottle you would, if there's one bottle that you don't have, what would that bottle be that you would be your dream bottle? Do you have one?
Yeah, I'm still looking for 3 to add to my collection. It's 3 of the Italian, the series of the Giaconis I talked about, 1969, cast 6637, 6638 and 6639. I'm looking for these. I've been trying hard, and yeah, I'll get them. I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, you've always got to be positive.
Yeah.
So thinking some of the changes that we've seen in the range and some of the packaging and something like that. You talk about the Bowmore or the 15-year-old being your favourite just now. If we think back to some of the older expressions that were in the standard range, did you have any particular favourites there? Because it used to be that the manager at Bowmore, anytime you asked them what's your favourite whiskey, it was Bowmore 17.
Yeah, the 17 was fantastic, and the stencil label with the white tube and the navy blue ribbon round it. Yeah, the old 17 was really good. Yeah, it was a good standard age Bowmore, highly bourbon matured, so it had the true character again in it.
I'm just going to check to see if we get any more questions here. We've got Argo from Belgium. He's sending a greeting to Eddie McArthur and Ginger. And we have a question from T. Is the distillery open 24 hours a day and 7 days a week?
Yeah, we're working 24/7 now. Yeah, absolutely. Visitor centre and shop isn't, so there's no point in turning up.
Also saying that we've got an anonymous. Nice to hear some of the production staff mentioned. As the most important people in a distillery are the people that make the whiskey, and without these people, none of us have a job, and they do a tremendous job, and sometimes they are, feels like a thankless task, but these people are incredible at what they do, and they are absolute craftspeople. The way that I think about the people at our distilleries is like an orchestra. If you don't have a conductor like Davey to pull all of these, perhaps your percussion and your bass in at the right time, it can be a really confused message. But I think what works so incredibly well is at Bowmore is it literally is like watching the maltsters dance in the malt barns when you see everybody work in sync and harmony to produce a beautiful thing. And each and every person at that distillery is vitally important to the whiskey that you taste in your glass. Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. This is from Leo from Germany. How long will it take for the copper in your stills to disappear? And when are you forced to replace them?
The stills, obviously the liquid in the stills is lower down, so the lower of the still tends to wear quicker. So if you go around the distillery, the still is there, but you can see they're joined up. They've got different joints in them, so they're not replaced as a whole still. You tend to we do a thickness test in the copper every year, so when it gets down thin, we tend to replace the stills in different bits. It's not you just take the whole still away and replace it. You do the bottom, or there's a middle, or there's the neck, or the lin arm. So we'll replace it in different sections when it gets worn down. So it's not a case of you just replace the whole still. It's replaced in parts.
And we've got one final one for you, David, just before we wind up here from Cask Strength QC. I'm not sure if that's Quebec. David, I imagine when you started at Bowmore, it was because you needed a job. Did you ever imagine you'd be a bit of a rock star in the whiskey world? And how do you feel about that?
No, I came in here at 16. Tourism wasn't so big in 1990. We probably only got a couple of thousand tourists a year at Bowmore. The manager was based at the distillery all year round. There wasn't the odd salesman or marketing guy was on the road, so No, the whiskey world's changed a lot in the last 30 years, that's for sure. But it's good to go out and get on the road and meet the consumers and spread the love.
Well, with that in mind, folks, sadly our Fèis Ìle 2020 session for Bowmore is drawn to a close. But I know certainly from Chicago, I would like to raise my glass to you and to Davey and the incredible team, and Linda and Charlie and Riley and Celine and everybody who has made this possible. I'd like to raise a glass to you all and say Slán Java, good health.
Yeah, thanks for hosting us, Ian, and I'd like to make a wee toast. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. Unfortunately, you can't be here, but stay safe at home. We look forward to welcoming you in the near future. And all I can say is keep drinking Bowmore. The best Bowmore is still to come. Slán you.
Thanks, folks. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.